Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Katie Wismer. I'm an author. I write fantasy and romance, and my 12th book, Tell Me It's Wrong, releases on April 14th. I don't know what day this video is going up, so the book might actually be out right now. All my links are down below. Today we're taking a bit of a walk down memory lane. As I said, this will be book number 12 for me. We are going all the way back to book number 1. Technically book number 2, but novel number 1. Depending on how you look at it, this is a bit of a horror story, but I also think it makes for an interesting discussion, and there's a lot that we can pick apart about this and learn from this. This first book came out in June of 2020, so it's been about 5 years. This to me is ancient history, so I really do feel like I can just kind of take a step back and talk about this completely unemotionally at this point and just objectively. So in part, this video is, here's a little bit of my lore. If you haven't been around since this fiasco, here's a little history lesson. But mainly this is aimed at other writers and other authors. And like I said, what we can take away from this, what we can learn from this. And surprisingly, I hope this will actually be a comfort to you to hear about what started not so great. So yeah, my first publishing experience. Okay, so here's a really brief rundown of the beginning of my publishing career. If you're not familiar with me, my first book came out actually in 2018. It's called The Sweetest Kind of Poison. It's a collection of poetry. I don't count this as my first book, even though it technically is. I published this when I was still a college student, and it was strictly a just for fun project. Like, I really didn't think I was going to go into self-publishing after this. And then I graduated college, and then come 2020 realized, maybe actually yeah, I am gonna do this. So my first book, once I did that, was The Anti-Virginity Pact, and I consider that to be my first book. It's definitely my first novel. And that first experience, once I decided, hey, I want to try and make this my job, was kind of every author's nightmare, in that people fucking hated this book. And it's beyond that. Like, this experience was beyond people not liking the content of the book. We'll get into it. So we're gonna do a deep dive into my debut novel, the how, the why, the what the hell, but then also on a larger scale, bigger picture, what does this actually mean for your career if you take an absolute nosedive with your first book, the way that I did. So the book in question, our case study for today, is called The Anti-Virginity Pact. It now looks like this. It originally looked like this, and this is a YA coming of age, like hard-hitting contemporary novel. And most people who follow me elsewhere outside of YouTube probably don't even know that this book exists, to be honest. Like TikTok, Instagram, if you haven't been following me as like a content creator, if you've only been following me as an author, I feel like most people probably don't even know that I have this book, because you will never catch me marketing it. And it's not necessarily because I don't want people to read it. It's more of a strategy kind of thing. And is it really worth putting my time and money and energy into marketing this book for reasons we will get into? I have concluded no, which is why I don't do it. But also on that note, I would absolutely prefer anyone new to my work to not start here. I would much prefer you start with one of my more recent books and then maybe go back to this if you're curious. I would definitely rather this not be your first introduction to me. But with that said, you're gonna hear a lot of negative things in this video. I do not hate this book. It's one of those cases where like, I can talk shit about my brother, but if anybody else does, like, excuse me, I will roast this book a little bit, but know that it comes from a place of love. This is like a time capsule of who I was at this point in my life, in my career. And I have a lot of fondness for this book for a lot of reasons. I actually originally wrote this book when I was 17 years old. I was still in high school. Then I went on to college, didn't touch it for 4 years. And then my senior year, I found it again, decided to completely rewrite it. And then once I graduated, I published it. This video is also being sponsored by Dossier, so huge thank you to them. Dossier is a fragrance company that makes perfumes inspired by luxury scents, but at a much more affordable cost. And they have been a part of my writing routine for, I can't even keep track of the years now. I feel like it's been like 3 years or something. I pick one of their perfumes to go with each of my books, and I always wear it when I'm working on the book, so I create a scent association with it. They are clean, cruelty-free, and vegan, and as someone who's fragrance sensitive, they don't give me a headache, which I absolutely love. Unfortunately, way back when I was working on this book, this was before I created this ritual, so I don't have a signature scent for this book, but I do for most of mine. And the scent association thing is just a really fun routine. Makes my writing routine feel a little more special, and I really do feel like it helps me with productivity. I've like trained my brain that every time I smell this particular scent, we're focusing on this project. Absolutely recommend trying if you haven't. If you go onto Dossier's site, you can see which scent each of theirs was inspired by, and they also have their Dossier's original line. A current favorite of mine is their Floral Rhubarb. This actually is not connected with any of my books. It's just been like my favorite everyday perfume, so maybe like retroactively, like now I can say, I'll give this to this book now, 5 years later. I'll have them linked down below in my description if you want to go check them out, and let's just get into the rest of the video. So let's get into it. Part 1, what went wrong? There are 2 parts to this: business decisions that I made and then like the quality of the book. So on the quality of the book side, the book is a bit of a mess. So if you go look at my books on any review sites, you will definitely see this is my lowest rated book. I think on Goodreads it's like a 3.2 something. Like it's real bad. On Amazon it's not as bad. If you know anything about the book review space, Goodreads is a cesspool and not very reliable when it comes to reviews. Amazon is usually a little less vicious, and I say Goodreads is less reliable for reviews. We will get into it actually. That's not to say there aren't valid low reviews of this book, but Goodreads really does not do anything to try to manage what's happening on its platform, even if you complain. So you have people who've never read the book reviewing it. You've got people review bombing for reasons that have nothing to do with the book. You have people who rate things 1 star because that's their system for how to put something on a TBR. So they're not even like trying to hurt you on purpose. They just like put it as a 1 star to like organize their shelves. It's a mess over there. On Amazon, I think the average is like 3.8. Numbers aside, this book was just really poorly received and just absolutely ripped to shreds, which coming from me now, 12 books in, would not bother me that much. You win some, you lose some things hit, some things don't. For my very first experience, something I was very excited about. First book put out into the world. I was also 22 or 23 when I was publishing this. Like I was fresh out of college. I was not prepared for what happened to me, but it feels like I'm being harassed. Also, this video is meant to be like a zoom out objective, let's look at this situation, not me trying to argue for the merits of this book. And we're not going to do that in the comments. Like I genuinely don't care what people say about this book. From a craft perspective, it is pretty messy. Like I said, I read it when I was 17. I rewrote it when I was 22, and I think it shows. I don't think it's as hopeless as some people will make it out to be in the reviews. There's still a lot that I like about it. There's still a lot about it that fits the vision that I had for the book, but I have grown a ton since writing this. I look back at it, my writing has gotten a lot tighter, just like on the line level. I can plot a lot better. I have a much better understanding of pacing. And early on in my books, a major thing that I have noticed is I tried to cram too much into them because I was worried about them being boring. So this book for sure has its flaws when it comes to craft, but what really went wrong for me with this release, in my opinion, even more so than like the actual quality of the book, is some marketing decisions that I made. So that's really what I want to talk about. The marketing side of things with this book really bit me in the ass. Had I made different decisions, I don't think the release would have gone too differently. Like, this isn't to say if I had done these things differently, like nobody would have hated the book. I don't think so. But I did a really bad job at targeting my ideal reader. Like, I had no idea what I was doing with this first book release. I didn't know much about like fitting genre expectations in the writing of this book and the packaging of this book and the marketing of this book and how to target your ideal reader. Like, I didn't know anything about anything when it came to marketing with this first book. And I really underestimated the importance of knowing what you're doing in those lanes. So first things first, the first wave of people who pick up your book matters, and whether or not they are your ideal reader. And my first wave of readers, the vast majority of them are not my target audience for a young adult hard-hitting contemporary. I published this book when my YouTube channel was at its peak. I've never like been huge on YouTube, but in like the book space, I used to get way more views. Like, my channel was more popular. If you don't know the origin of this channel, I started as a booktube channel back in 2016 and then started to like slowly transition into author content around like 2020, 2021. So when I published this in 2020, I was still a booktube channel, which you would think would be an ideal audience for this. Not necessarily. I had people who had just been following my channel for 5-6 years, who had seen me graduate college, who had seen me work on this, and they were just like fans of my channel and they wanted to support me as a person, so they went out to buy my book. And so many of them would tell you, like, I don't read, this isn't my genre, this is not my preference, but I want to support Katie, so I'm gonna buy this book. So I had a lot of people going into this book who don't read this genre. I had a lot of people who just followed my channel or who were just like in the booktube space, who flocked to this book out of curiosity, as the way that people did for any booktuber or author-tuber who published at that time. If you were around on booktube in 2020, you've seen how that went for some of the other authors on here. So my point is, my first wave of readers were YouTube viewers, not my ideal reader. Why does this matter? I am mainly talking in terms of Amazon's algorithm. So when you go to purchase a book on Amazon, you scroll down and you're gonna see a bunch of other books that Amazon recommends to you, saying like, oh, customers who read this also bought this book. And ideally, when you're an author, when you scroll down, you're gonna see other books that are in your genre, comparable books, similar plots, similar authors, similar genre. When you're a YouTuber, you're gonna scroll down and you're gonna see other YouTuber books, even though they are completely different genres. And that doesn't just affect your Amazon page and the also bots. Now, when people are elsewhere on Amazon, my book is gonna be recommended to people who read some random high fantasy book, some random nonfiction book, because they were written by YouTubers. So then if people aren't clicking on the recommendations, that is feeding into Amazon's algorithm like, oh, this book isn't getting this click-through rate. Like, this is skewing so much data on Amazon's back end and making my book look bad, basically, because it's not targeting young adult readers. It's targeting YouTube watchers. So I kind of knew going in this was going to be a bit of an issue. So my attempt to balance this out was I put the book on NetGalley. If you're unfamiliar with NetGalley, it's a site where you can go to request early copies of books. It's very popular in traditional publishing, and it is a bloodbath over there. You think Goodreads is bad with the negativity? Go check out NetGalley. This is something I didn't really know about the site until I was on it. And when I was experiencing this with my book, people like viciously tore it to shreds on NetGalley. I didn't realize that this was like a widespread thing that happened on that site. I thought it was just me. Obviously took a hit to my confidence with that. 5 years later, seeing dozens and dozens of other authors use NetGalley and seeing the trends, I'm like, oh no, NetGalley is just like notorious for having really negative reviewers. Not only do you have people who were just like really negative over there, but NetGalley also works on this system where your ability to get approved for ARCs depends on your rate at reviewing. So if you request a ton of books and then you don't review them, your rate drops, which will lower your chance of getting approved for ARCs in the future. So you have a lot of people who feel pressure to review a book that they might not have finished otherwise. So I got a lot of like 1 stars, people who DNF'd at 5%, DNF'd at 10%. Like they didn't, I personally have feelings about rating books that you DNF'd. If you've only read like 5 pages of a book, I don't feel like you should be rating it. And so you have a lot of people who were rating and reviewing books just to kind of keep their review rate up, which I don't fault them for because they would get penalized if they didn't. A lot of people on NetGalley also will just like request every single book without really thinking twice. And then if they get approved, now all of a sudden they have all of these books that they have to review or they're going to be penalized for it. So you just have a lot of people feeling pressured to review your book when in another circumstance they might have picked it up, realized it's not for them, and then just, you know, left it alone. So now I have a lot of people who are not my target audience from YouTube. I have a lot of people who feel like they have to review the book, a lot of people who are just like negative in general, which means a ton of my early reviews are not positive. And that is really hard to come back from once you start low, because a lot of readers will go to a book, see that it has an average low rating, and then they won't even give it a try. A lot of them won't read the reviews to see why people were negatively reviewing it. They just see, oh, that book has under a 4-star average, I'm not even going to read it. So I felt like I really just set myself up for failure at the beginning. So a major reason why I don't even bother marketing this book now is because I might post like a blurb or a teaser on TikTok. People think, oh, that looks interesting. They go see, oh, but it has a pretty bad rating. Never mind. So I'm putting all of this effort to funnel them into the page, only for them to click away and not buy the book. Whereas with one of my higher rated books, that conversion is a lot easier, so it feels a lot more worth my time. So those are kind of the more like technical marketing sides of things. Some other reasons why the ratings were so low that were a little more particular to this book. There's some things beyond your control, like reader expectations. So the most common reason that I got low ratings, 1 stars for this book. Some of these honestly are just kind of funny and I just want to share with you guys. One of them that's pretty frustrating for me is people going into this thinking it's a romance, which on the one hand is my fault. 100%. But on the other hand, it's frustrating because when you set up a book on KDP, you choose which categories you want your book to be in. And if you go through my dashboard, every single category that I selected for this book is not a romance category. Like I very clearly tried to set it off into the other contemporary categories, but Amazon gets a final say and Amazon can put it wherever the fuck it wants. And so Amazon has put it in romance categories. So then I have people reading the book thinking it's a romance. And if you don't know much about genres, a fundamental part of a romance book is the couple has to end up together at the end of the book. You have to have a happy ending or a happy for now ending. Minor spoilers for this book. The couple doesn't end up together because it's not a romance. So I have lots of 1-star reviews being like, this isn't a romance. And I have done everything in my power to make that clear. In the blurb of the book, I say, you know, this isn't a romance. I've set up the categories so it's not a romance. All of my keywords are non-romance keywords. But I just have people going in expecting a romance when it's not. And I have found it really challenging to make that clear to readers. Even the cover, I feel like, looks like a YA contemporary, less so a romance. I really feel like part of what bit me in the ass with this was I wrote the companion to this, which is the anti-relationship year, which is a romance. So my bad on that for sure. I've definitely considered splitting them up and not having them connected. It's not like a continuous series, they're interconnected standalones, so you can still read either or, but I do feel like maybe that's where some confusion is coming from, which is 100% my fault. I have a whole video about all of the mistakes that I've made with this first series, lots of lessons learned. But yeah, making it very clear to readers what it is so important, but it is just frustrating when you have people who just don't read the blurb, or like you try to put it everywhere what it is and people just don't listen. There's not much that you can do about that. A lot of people will pick up a book without even like reading anything on the page. They've just heard from someone who heard from someone who heard from someone something about it, and then they just go in with those expectations without doing any research themselves, which there's not really much that can be done about that. Another thing, this one honestly makes me really irritated, is people saying it's not spicy enough. It's a young adult book. It's about children. I have never once described this book as spicy. I even have a chart on the Amazon page that says there is no spice in this book. Why people are going into a young adult book expecting spice, I know there are young adult books out there with spice. I don't understand why you want to read graphic sex about children. Don't even get me started. That one makes me mad. I think people might be making the assumption off of the title too. The title has given me trouble with that, and then also with getting flagged for potentially being inappropriate. Then I have to like go in and make a request and be like, hey, there's nothing inappropriate in here, I promise. Like when I was first getting the book into Scribd, which is now I think called Everand, they at first rejected it because of the title, and I had to be like, this is a young adult, there's no explicit content. So that, again, my bad. Another one that honestly just kind of kills my soul a little bit. This is too serious. It was boring. Which again, this really just comes down to reader expectations, and if people were expecting a steamy romance and then they come in, and this book is a hard-hitting contemporary that deals with religious trauma. So people coming into social commentary about how toxic religion can be with coming in with the steamy romance expectation, I stood no fucking chance. As previously stated, we had a lot of reviews where people just DNF'd it and rated it anyway. Not my personal style, but people can do what they like. Then we have people, this one drives me crazy, people who rate the book low as a way to like complain about the site and not the book. Like I got a 1 star from NetGalley because NetGalley never sent them the link, so they never got the book, so they gave the book a 1 star. Or someone bought a book from Amazon and a page fell out, which is Amazon's problem for manufacturing it, but they gave the book a 1 star for having pages falling out. Stuff like that, out of the author's control. That's not special to this book. I get that on all kinds of books. So just a PSA if you're a reader, that review is not gonna hurt the site that did it to you, but it's gonna hurt the author. Don't do it. You can reach out to Amazon's customer service and they'll give you a replacement book. Then lastly, I pissed off a lot of Christians with this book, as you can imagine. Tackling religion with your first book at a young age, 0 out of 10 recommend. No regrets on anything that I wrote in this book, no regrets about the content of this book. I look back at the younger version of myself though, and I want to give her a hug for what she went through, but it feels like I'm being harassed because boy did I get an earful from some Christians. In and out of their reviews was the problem with this experience. You can say whatever you want about the book in the reviews, can't stop you. It's your prerogative, it's your right. State your opinion. If you've been around since then, I think I have a whole vlog of it over on my vlog channel. I can't even put into words what happened with this book. It was all in my YouTube comments, it was in my emails, it was in my DMs. I was literally just wanted to like crawl into a cave and hide from the just everywhere. Death threats, people telling me I was going to hell, people calling me pig-headed, people saying I was misleading my impressionable audience, like some from people who read the book and didn't like it, but a lot who just had heard the premise of the book and that angered them enough to come at me, and they hadn't even like read the book. A lot of like, why are you attacking Christianity specifically and not any other religions? Why aren't you showing positive examples of Christianity? Like this isn't even a thoughtful, equal like it's the funniest thing was like the point of this book they were proving tenfold. I'm like getting like, a lot of this is objective to me. This part of it is not. It was super inappropriate. A lot of lines were crossed. And that is the one part of this experience that like genuinely still upsets me. So let's make a pivot to part 2. What can we learn from this? We've kind of already dipped into it a little bit, but the first thing I want to talk about is actually if you are an author or an aspiring author, if you're planning on publishing in the future, I feel like a lot of people, I've heard from a lot of people, their fears about getting into publishing, putting their work out there to be criticized, being afraid of negative reviews and stuff. Honestly, I hope you see this experience and you can take it as a comfort, because this experience absolutely fucking sucked for me. This book was just torn through the mud. Me personally, my character was torn through the mud. Like, people were just so unkind about this book. 5 years have passed. I have now published 12 books. I am doing so well. This has not negatively affected my career in the slightest. I just kept going, and I have found more success than 5 years ago me could have even imagined. So honestly, I hope you can take this as a comfort that, like, even if something like this happens to you, and odds are it will not, you might have something that doesn't do well, but if it's not super controversial, you shouldn't get this kind of reaction, hopefully. You will be fine. Even if something goes not according to plan, you will be fine. A lot of people are afraid of getting into publishing because they're afraid of crashing and burning. I, in fact, crashed and burned, but it's ancient history at this point. And now I just kind of let this book collect dust at the bottom of my Amazon page, and if people find it, want to go back to it and read it, they can. A lot of authors, once they get further into their career, will go back and unpublish some of their earlier books that they're not as proud of. And I've considered it, to be honest. But I don't know, this book is special to me. It's part of my journey, and I'm not ashamed of it. I know that I've grown from here. I know that I write better books now, but also, like, I firmly believe that you get the ideas that you have at certain periods in your life for a reason. I know that I could write this book better now if I had gotten the idea now, but if I was meant to write the book now, I would have gotten the idea now. Like, this book, I really believe, was meant to exist this way for a reason. I got the idea at that point in my life for a reason. It really doesn't sell me very much now because I don't market it. It's usually after I kind of shit talk it in one of my videos that people will go and buy it, I think, because they're just a little bit nosy, which is kind of funny. But I also learned a lot about publishing from this book. I had a pretty negative experience with every professional that I worked with also. Not necessarily my editor. She didn't do a bad job. It made me realize that, like, I didn't need to hire certain kinds of editors, but my cover designer, my narrator, didn't have great experiences with them. You live and you learn. The universe really threw me in the deep end with this first book and just let me figure out how to swim. So now my concluding thoughts, then I also kind of want to just talk about negative reviews in general as an author and how to deal with those. I've talked about that a few times in the past. I have a few vlogs that I actually just, like, fully stand by everything I said in those. I'll link those down below as well. But number one, there are some things that are just going to happen outside of your control. You can spell it out for people and they still won't get it. Like, I try so hard to spell out what the genre is. There's no spice in this, and, like, if people aren't going to read the description of the book, there's nothing that you can do. Also, some books are just more niche, and it's harder to find the target audience for them. Like, my ideal reader for this were people who are either currently teenagers or people who are now older who were going through something similar as my main character. Someone who grew up in a really religious family and ended up forming different beliefs as they got older and having that kind of internal struggle, and also, like, healing from religious trauma. And despite all of the negative parts of this release, I still can remember every single person who reached out to me. I'm gonna get, like, emotional about it. Oh my God. Who, like, emailed me or DM'd me who had a personal story, and they were, like, really moved by this book because it was the first time that they had seen this kind of representation for themselves. And, like, I just heard such personal stories. So thank you so much, if you happen to be here, for the people who reached out to tell me how much this book meant to them, because that was so, like, on a soul level meaningful to me. This was also meant for people with social anxiety, the people who were kind of made fun of for being quiet when they were younger, which is something that I dealt with, or just people who have open minds and who want to go into books to learn something and to, like, see other people's perspectives, and who want to practice empathy from reading about characters that they don't relate to, but they could potentially just, like, see a different point of view that they haven't seen before. Some people just want to go into books purely for entertainment value, and that's absolutely valid. I actually have written some books that I purely did for entertainment value, but that is not this book. And I definitely learned with this release how important targeting the correct readers are, because if you're going in for a silly, goofy time and you get something serious, I can't fault you for not liking it, because that's not what you were looking for. I'm jumping in as I'm editing this because one other thing I forgot to talk about when I was talking about who my ideal readers were, not that this really matters, but it was in my notes and I forgot to go through it. But I was really aiming for the audience who liked hard-hitting YA contemporary novels, obviously, because that's what the genre is. But I think it's also worthy of note that I kind of feel like I missed the market on this, because when I was first writing this, when I was 17, that type of book was really popular. We're talking, like, I don't know, 2013. Like, the hard-hitting YA contemporaries were really big. Think, like, Fault in Our Stars, like that kind of era. And I feel like those have kind of trickled off since then. And that genre also, admittedly, I think is a lot more successful in traditional publishing than indie publishing. So I really started my career, had no idea what I was doing in the first place, but I also truly had no idea what I was getting myself into trying to market an indie, hard-hitting young adult novel that's not a romance plus the heavy religious commentary. There are definitely certain genres that I feel like do better in self-pub versus trad pub. Not to say you can't self-pub any genre, you can, but there are certain genres that just you're gonna meet less resistance with, which I've definitely noticed with my later books, like my romance, my fantasy and stuff. Those are a breeze in comparison. So that was like my ideal readership, and then in comparison, the ones I actually ended up getting: random YouTube subscribers who never read this genre, Christians who I don't know why they picked it up in the first place, romance readers, spicy readers, and then people who read for entertainment or escape and thought this was too serious. So basically the exact opposite of what I was looking for, I somehow ended up with, which I really feel like just speaks to the importance of targeting the right people and figuring out how to target those people and where you're choosing to market. It's not just something that you will stumble across and it'll just work out, like these readers will magically find your book. You do have to be really strategic about it, which I knew nothing about at first. As I said before, tying the books together was a mistake. It made sense at the time because the characters are interconnected. The second book follows the best friend of the main character in here, so it just like made sense to me to tie them together. But the different genres, young adult, contemporary, and then the second one is the new adult too. It's in college and it's a romance. It was just a bad call to tie two books of different genres together. The title was a problem. I would just steer clear of any potentially controversial words in your title, just on like the back metadata, and you don't even want to deal with that shit. And I would personally never use NetGalley again. It's unfortunately like it's a good idea if you don't have, it's like it has potential to be a good idea if you don't have like a built-in audience or any other way to source like early readers. And I was really just hoping to find a reach outside of my audience that I already had, like people who I was just hoping to expose it to new people who hadn't seen me before. And I got plenty of like valid reviews from NetGalley for sure. People who, good ones, bad ones, like plenty of valid reviews, but I would say like maybe half of them were not, is the problem. And then like we talked about earlier, once those invalid reviews, people who read 5% of it and then give it a 1 star because they don't want to finish it, that just weighs down your average rating to the point of no return, basically. And yeah, people on NetGalley are just, a lot of them are just really negative reviewers. And now finally I want to talk about negative reviews a little bit. I've seen, there's actually, this fucking discourse comes up every so often. It's just a cycle. It just keeps coming back, where you'll have readers who insist that authors need to take advice from their negative reviews, that authors need to take constructive criticism. Have you seen the Rena Kent situation that's been going on lately? Like, I have learned so much in my career, in my writing career so far. I feel like I have grown so much. 90 to 95% of what I have learned, how I have grown, the improvements I have made have not come from reviews. It has had nothing to do with the negative reviews. You are going to grow, you are going to learn regardless. I really don't think you should be sourcing your advice from reviews. You'll get better with practice, your critique partners, your alpha readers, your beta readers, your editors, people who are qualified to be giving you advice and who can give you actual constructive, like, objective things about your book that need to be changed, not just subjective personal preferences of they didn't like the book and they have no qualifications to be suggesting changes to you. I would personally recommend just not reading reviews at all, but especially the negative, like 1-star ones. Most 1-star reviews are absolutely useless for authors. And I can just hear the reviewers who always take this stance, like screaming in the background, like, you need to take constructive criticism, yes, but not from you. If someone hated everything about a book, there is nothing that you could have changed about that book to make them like it, but also to keep you liking it. Like, there is nothing that you could have done. If they hated everything about it, you could tweak everything that they complained about, but then it's going to be unrecognizable. It's no longer going to be the book that you wanted it to be. If an author has finished a book, gone through the editors and everything, and published the book, that means that is what they wanted the book to be. And it might not be a personal fit for certain readers, but that doesn't mean that they needed to change it. Reviews will be so contradictory. You'll have one person say this was way too slow. You'll have one person say, I loved the pacing of this. You'll have one person say, I hate how slow burn this was. Another one say, this was too spicy. Another, this wasn't spicy enough. You cannot please everyone. Something that someone hated, another person loved. It's so subjective. And for me, the way that I approach my books is, at the end of the day, I don't write my books for readers. Gasp. I write what I want to write. I try to achieve my vision for a book, and then I try to make it the best that it can be, and I bring in second opinions to help me craft it into what I want it to be. And then my job is to find people who are also going to like this thing that I've created. And sometimes I get that right, and sometimes I get that wrong. I really disagree with the stance that it makes it sound like readers are like standing at a Subway and they're ordering exactly what they want for a book and they expect you to make it to their... To be clear, some writers do work that way and they write to market and they write specifically in mind trying to make it as likable and mainstream as possible. And that's perfectly valid too if you want to do that. But not all writers work that way. Not for me, personally. In conclusion, I wouldn't recommend reading reviews. It's subjective. There are things beyond your control. The book is done. Like, you're not going to go back and change it. Focus on the things that you can control instead. This book in particular really taught me to just move on and focus on the next book. I feel like a lot of people are also going to be like, well, if all of the reviews are saying the same thing, you should listen to them. Potentially. So if there are trends in the reviews, everybody's saying the same thing, it's something to consider. But I have had cases, again, where there are some things that like a lot of readers are saying, but I don't agree with it. And if I made that change, I would no longer like the book that I created. So I'm not going to make that change. Well, obviously I'm not going to make any change to the book. But if you're trying to take advice into the next book, every book is so different from the next that like a lot of the times the advice, it's not interchangeable. Like, it wouldn't even be helpful to you for the next book. There are certain things that I have seen in reviews for my books that I have kept in mind that have been helpful for me later. Like I was saying, my first couple of books, I really felt like I crammed too much into them, and people have commented on that as well. And it's something I'm definitely conscious of now with later books. Same with my endings. In my earlier books, people would talk about the ending being too abrupt, not satisfying enough for them. So I definitely pay more attention to my endings now. So there are occasionally things that you can pull from negative reviews, but I would say like 95% of the things that people say in reviews are not helpful. And if you're not like mentally in a place where you're going to be able to like look at it objectively and not get your feelings hurt, and a lot of people will kind of like laugh at that and roll your eyes and be like, you need to have tougher skin, this isn't the job for you if you can't handle that. Don't listen to those people. They're being cruel and having no empathy. To be creative, you really need to be in a good place emotionally, and draining your mental health by reading things that upset you, it doesn't make you a wuss. It doesn't make you not qualified for this job to not be able to handle people being absolutely unhinged and vicious, because some people cross boundaries in those reviews and it's beyond just talking about the things that they don't like. They'll attack you as a person. Like, there are valid reasons to not read your reviews, and there is no shame in admitting that you are someone who just cannot read them. I will say, as time passes, you might be able to. Like, I can go back to this book 5 years later and I can read them and it doesn't bother me now. But when it's fresh, or if it's your first book, there is no shame in saying, I know I will not be capable of reading these reviews. And I promise you, you're not missing out if you don't read them. I would recommend there's a Chrome extension that you can download. So when you do have to go into Goodreads to like update the stuff on the back end, it'll hide the average ratings for you and it will only show you the 5-star reviews so you don't have to like accidentally see them. Recommend. Yeah, don't listen to the reviewers and the readers who absolutely insist that you need to learn from their negative reviews and they try to force their opinions on you. You will learn, you will grow, you will get better, but not because of them. They don't know what they're talking about. And in conclusion, one bad book or one bad book release will not kill you. It will not ruin your career. You can go on to do just fine. So if it happens, it sucks. Would definitely recommend getting some other authors, getting a group chat, get that community support. Another thing about negative reviews, do not respond to them. Do not reply to them. Do not take a negative review and post it on your socials and put the reviewer on blast, because then your followers are going to go mob them. Like, just don't respond to it. People will cross boundaries and people will be really rude and tag you in things and send things to you. No matter how many times we tell people to stop doing it, they still will do it. Untag yourself, block them, protect your peace. Again, with the Rena Cat situation recently, if you haven't seen it, you probably don't even want to see it. There's just some really bad behavior going on in the reading community right now. Some like really just like entitled, complete lack of empathy behavior. It's just really disgusting. My advice to you is to just honestly just not get involved personally. We got a little off topic, but feel free to let me know if you have any questions down below in the comments. I think I covered everything that I wanted to. This is my first book. Everybody hated it and everything turned out okay. I'll see you guys in our next video very, very soon. Bye.